So hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. I'm your host, intuitive counselor, and spiritual guide, Victoria Shaw. And today, oh my God, the inspiration is just pouring in. There are so many topics that I wanted to talk about and riff upon on the podcast, but I'm going to start with this one because it's super duper duper cool. And if you can hear a little bit of a frog in my throat, I apologize for that. I don't know what it is, but I woke up this way. But anyway, I was thinking today, I had two clients this past week, and similar stories for both of them. One was a mom who was seeking advice for her daughter who was she'd actually already applied to college, but she'd gotten into one school. Um, that school had given her a lot of money, and she was, kind of thinking she was going to go there, even though it wasn't like a top choice. And then she was also waiting to hear from another school, kind of a big name school. And, but nothing had really happened with that yet. She was just in that waiting period. And the guides came in and gave her a lot of information. And they also gave her the mom, a lot of information about that brand name school and saying, how this might be a beneficial choice and, maybe nudge this person, that the daughter knew at that school or whatever. It was a few action steps, but a lot of it had to do with the way they were understanding the situation and understanding what might be best in service of her daughter's needs moving forward, right? And she'd kind of set her hopes on one school, maybe because it felt like the safe and familiar choice. And the guides were like, ooh, look here too. So I got a call from the mom about 10 days, 2 weeks later saying, oh my God, she got into the brand name school. And now, we have to decide. And she also said something, and that is one of the reasons why I'm sitting in front of this microphone today. She also said, I feel like that conversation shifted something. I feel that conversation shifted something, and that is why she got in. And I want to talk about that a little bit because it is really, really true. Remember, from the perspective of the law of attraction, right? What we focus on grows, right? And how we understand things is how we set our intention, right? And that's a moving target. It's always adjusting and changing. And so at that moment that I and my client, and probably to some extent her daughter, started thinking about the situation just a little bit differently, right? It kind of can sometimes move the dial to allow different things to come through and to manifest and to occur, right? Because we are always creating our path. We're co-creating our path with others who are, thinking for us and with us, but, we are also our own primary point of attraction. And so I really do think that part of that conversation that I had with the mom is what moved the dial for her to get into this other school. And that looks like where she's going to go. And it does feel like the beneficial choice. So yay, and congratulations to her. And then I had a call with another client, and it was a similar situation. This was an adult, a business person, and they had an offer to sell one of their businesses. And the guides, came in, and there was a lot of back and forth in this conversation. And both of them, actually, it wasn't just the guides telling them what to do. But the guides, in the process of sort of reading this person's energy and getting them oriented to what they wanted, it sounded like they might want to sell the company, but they didn't necessarily want to sell it for the price that it was being offered, right? And there was actually two situations in this. There was another one too, where the clarifying of the situation, right? In both the action steps, like one was a negotiation and sort of how to negotiate something with someone, and the other, I guess they're both in negotiations, and the other was someone getting clear on what they really wanted as the next step for their business and what they would settle for. Like in both cases, things unfolded in a particular way. And in the case of the selling of the business, they on the basis of the conversation, they were like, they decided to decline the initial offer. And then the offering party came back and offered them a whole lot more. And that was in their range of like what what they wanted, right? But if they hadn't had the conversation, if they hadn't sort of tuned in and gotten clear about what they wanted, right, that manifestation might not have come through because they might have thought, as our minds sometimes do, right? Oh, it's not worth it to sell for that amount. And maybe we're not really ready to let go of it. And, this doesn't feel good. And boom, 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 that would have constricted forward motion. But by getting really clear on what they didn't like about that offer, right, it helps them to manifest the offer that they're looking for, right? And that is actually how things flow. And the guys are hopping in now because they want to share. And what they're saying is, oftentimes, you sweet humans will sort through the information presented from to you from living your life, right? The things that are happening, the way things are flowing, like, and the way you interpret them, right? And it's okay to want things, right? It's okay for some things to feel good and some things not to feel good. But they say sometimes after that place of discernment, this feels good, this doesn't feel good, we go into overthinking. And that process of overthinking, right, can actually take you away from your goals because sometimes we don't really know what we want from that overthinking lens. And in the process of overthinking it, we muddy the water of our manifestation. And I'm checking with the guides because I took over the microphone. Did I get it right? And I'm getting a mostly thumbs up, but there might be a little more they want to share as we move on. But the basic idea is, if I'm hearing them correctly, right, is that the more present we can be, the more we can be tapped into our intuition and interpreting and experiencing and responding to life from there, the more we're going to be in the flow with what we want. And the more we're going to be able to create things sort of effortlessly and beautifully that are going to be aligned with our highest desires, right? And so, you'll get there either way, right? Maybe you turn down, one offer for your business and then you go back and you're like, okay, well, it's not worth enough to sell it yet. And we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then you get really tired, you know, and then, you start thinking, well, it'd be worth it enough to sell it for that number. Okay. And you start moving your energy towards that. So you very well may get there eventually. But when we can really be clear with ourselves, when we can tap into the part of ourselves that really truly knows, that sees all the options, that's tabulating all the things that we want that will bring us joy, that even understands all the other energies of the co-creators that we're doing this with, and tabulates all of that beautifulness in real time, because the only time that is real is now, and gives us the download, the 411, even if it's just in like the next tiny micro step, because sometimes it's not the full answer, right? When we can learn to trust and tune into that, magical things and miraculous things happened. And I think this is what happened for both of my clients, right? In receiving that information from their guides and kind of taking it in, right? And clarifying what they wanted and what felt like the right path, and letting go of some of the mind-made restrictions that might have otherwise held them back, right? They were able to manifest these amazing things in pretty rapid time. And I would love to be able to take credit for that because I want you all calling me to help you improve your lives, right? Because, that's fun for me and fun for you and great for my business. Um, so do that if you want. I'm not holding you back. But it's more than that, right? It's more than that. It's understanding, right, that whatever it takes to really get us in the flow. And sometimes that's somebody else's lips like mine, right? And I have people that I talk to too for the very same reason, because sometimes when we're in our own lives, we're kind of wearing the blinders. Or we're seeing the tunnel vision, because we have all these belief systems swirling around that are taking us away from that deeper knowing, right? But really, for you, what you need to recognize is when you have these options, when you have these choices, you do have this built-in, GPS system. You do have this built-in knowing. And when you learn to still the mind and start to see the possibilities from there, magical and miraculous things will happen, because we are always co-creating our reality, right? And we want to start doing that from the highest, clearest, and most fulfilling possible lens. because honestly, why not? So I want to pause here and, kind of loop back to what we were saying, right? Because in both of those examples, it was people who called me to get, what do the guides think I should do about this? But in so doing, it was a supercharge for their manifestation, right? Because when they shift their mindset and shift their understanding of a situation, the situation was more easily able to align with their highest call. And that's so freaking cool. And the guides chime in and say, they don't want you to take this information as a way to hack the system, to be like, all right, like, tell me the 5 steps to get what I want. It's not that they won't do that. They absolutely will, to some degree if you're ready to receive it. But this is something deeper than that, right? This is manifesting, co-creating with soul rather than trying to hack and control from the level of ego. And those are different things. And they're coming in right now and saying the egoic approach is not wrong. In fact, it's very right. It's giving you information about what feels good, what feels bad, what you like, what you don't like within a particular framework, right? That you have been taught to understand and what you've been taught to identify as your very own self, right? And there's nothing wrong with this. So that last little bit um, tanked my energy a little bit. So I want to ask the guides about it. And what they're saying is yes, if you start to understand who you are as a co creation between your human lens and your higher lens, that's when things get really exciting. But many human beings, they get stuck in that egoic lens. And that one is a little more fear based. It's a little bit more wanting to control. It's wanting to get what it wants because it feels if it doesn't get what it wants, something's wrong with it or something's wrong with life. And none of that can be true. And the path to inspiration and the path to joy and the path to abundance and all of the things that you really want and the path to feeling loved and lovable, because we all want that too. And that always starts, my friends, as much as you can with loving yourself. So I'm going to give myself a hug. Because if you've been listening to this show for a while, you know how much I love to do that. Got to do the kissy thing too. Mwah. Oh, that feels so good. No, it really, really does. But what they're saying is the more we learn that cooperation between the ego lens, the human self and the soul self, that's when it gets really delightful. And they say that's what Victoria is talking about today. She's talking about people that came in for a reading or a coaching session because they had an inkling. They wanted to know there's something more here. There's something more here. And I want to make sure that I'm tabulating the whole picture rather than just navigating from, that limited human lens, right? And that's what we can all do. So I want to end this episode with a couple of pointers or tips about how to do that or what that might look like and how that might look like to you. Number one, the first step they say is love yourself. Love yourself and love that human part. And I'm thinking about a friend right now who is a very powerful manifester, but is ridiculously hard on themselves. And all of these things are streaming into their world right now, things that I would love to have streaming into mine, to be honest, right? But in their mind, they keep playing over and over again these old scarcity stories, and not enough stories. And so they're not even appreciating all of the things that are flowing, right? And the guys are telling me, and maybe I will, tell them too, right? That when they are ready to really, tap into this bigger lens, that's when everything's going to flow in the direction that they want it to. That's when they're going to be able to sort of let go and say, like, oh, these things that I thought were limiting factors, these are just these thoughts in my head. And if I am willing to have a little bit of skepticism and distance from these thoughts that this is the way it has to be, or this is the limit of who I am, or this is the only way to feel secure in life, is to go this path when the universe is pushing me over there. And, the path over there is blossoming for this dear friend of mine. But whatever that conundrum might be for you, right? It's around trust, it's around honoring and loving ourselves, and it's around being open to listen. And again, you'll hear it when you hear it. I'm sure this friend came into my mind because I want to shake them really, really, really hard and say, are you not seeing what's happening here? And I'm going to let their sweet energy go. They can listen to this episode like the rest of us, or the rest of you. But anyhow, but sometimes that's how it flows, right? We just get the blinders are on, or the tunnel vision is so constricted that it's hard for us to see how miraculous our lives are already flowing. So one thing that you can do is start to look at where things are flowing for you, right? Tap into that, because that will help you find more of that. And then the second thing is, start to become aware of those limiting beliefs. They're not things that we have to destroy, or root out or dumpster dive for. And sometimes we can bypass them altogether. But every once in a while, they are, that boulder that we have stuck in our path, and we think there's no way around it. And sometimes just by exploring it and having a little skepticism there, or at least knowing, that there's just so many paths to where we want to go, and that boulder might be standing in front of one of the many routes, but there are many, many more. And sometimes that boulder is a redirect, and sometimes that boulder is a pebble. And we have just made ourselves really, 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 really small. And we're looking at it from that really small lens. But when we start to have that expanded perspective, we can just step over it. And, that's the case for my friend, for sure. And I think that was the case for some of my clients that I talked about too. And sometimes too, that particular rock in our path, right? That stone in our path, that little perceived obstacle, or all the different obstacles that we're perceiving, because everything hasn't come together yet, and we haven't gotten the full answer that says, "Ooh, friend, this one is the way to go," right? Sometimes those are just good information. They're pointers. They're letting us know more what we want, what we desire, and they're helping us, create our cosmic vision board, that the universe is fulfilling for us all the time. And then we can just, step forward, trust, and receive that. But it's really all the guides say. I think they say. They're laughing at me right now, so I'm just going to keep talking and wait for them to chime in. But it's all about being present. It's all about being present with that, not being ruled by these thoughts, but becoming aware of both the perceived limits, but also our desires, what we really want. Because the guides say, and this one I know is coming from them, oftentimes when we don't believe something is possible, we dim the light. We dim the light, and and that's what happened with the student. Like, they didn't believe that this school was possible and that they could be happy and successful there. So they had prepared themselves to settle for something else, right? So I'm going to wind this one down right now and say, the more we can tap into that intuition, and you have over 300 episodes to choose from if you haven't listened to them all already around that topic, for sure. The more we can tap into our intuition, the more we can follow that flow, the more we can trust in ourselves, love ourselves, and trust in the process of life, the more this thing is going to work for us. And sometimes it's through that expanded awareness, right? Softening the mind, letting go of some of the obstacles, tuning in from that higher lens and allowing that to enrich and guide us, right? Not only do we know the next best steps, right? But the road in front of us literally changes, and the options and the things that we have been longing for materialize right in front of our eyes. And it can be as easy as that, and as joyous too. All right. So that's all I got. If you are intrigued and you do want to do and you do want to do a reading with yours truly, that is always an option. I work with folks all over the world via Zoom and phone, and folks in Southern California here in my office in San Diego. So if any of that speaks to you, you can go to Victoria Shaw Intuitive. SHAW is how you spell the last name, victoriashawintuitive.com. And check out my offerings there, and keep listening to the show, because all of these episodes cross-pollinate. They all they all lead you to the same place, but they all do so through different voices, sometimes different guests, different people, different lenses. But it is my sincere hope that everything I offer is helpful for you in guidance on your very own path home, because that's what we do, right? We're all just walking each other home. All right. Love you all. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and namaste.